All right, good morning. It is Thursday, September 26th. I am Marta Torres de Dominguez, your assistant principal, coming to you today for our grip reading. So, after Abuela's memorial came the day of the vote. So, today we're starting on page 204, chapter 24. Let's begin. Ready to roll call. The day of the vote, I sprang out of bed before my hook alarm clock went off. I got dressed and rushed out of my room to leave for the public forum. My mom was already in the kitchen, pacing as she read her notes while my dad coached her. She wore a blue pantsuit and her hair flowed in swirls down her shoulders. She looked serious and really, really pretty at the same time. My dad wore khakis and a button down. I thought that maybe I was underdressed with my nice jeans and polo shirt, but my mom insisted I looked fine. To be honest, I was glad because the 95-degree heat in the summer was awful, and all I could deal with was my loose-fitting jeans. We'll go ahead and save seats for everyone, my dad said. There was a knock at the door, and when I saw who it was through the peephole, I almost banged my knee on the door as I opened it. Are you okay? Carmen asked, but I was distracted. She was amazingly well dressed in a light pink jacket with a ruffled shirt underneath. I suddenly felt the urge to change again. I'll be right back, I said, and stormed into my room. I threw on my khakis, put on my button-down shirt, clipped on a red and blue tie, and slid my feet into a pair of loafers. In the bathroom, I soaked my hair and combed it as best I could. Then I put a lot of extra deodorant on. Not Mita, bro. That stuff is nasty. I couldn't get my hair to stay down, and after a couple of pats, I just gave up and went back out to meet Carmen. My mom looked at me as I walked out and gave a suspicious, Tienes agua en tu camiseta, my mom said. I looked at my shirt and saw the splotches of water that had soaked through. Carmen giggled. I'll go change, I said, but my mom insisted there wasn't time. In this heat, it'll dry in 5 minutes, she said, and grabbed her purse and keys and walked out with us. Carmen, ¿tu papá viene con nosotros? No, madrina, va a ir luego. The way my mom and Carmen spoke Spanish so easily to each other made me wish I could speak it better. The restaurant was on the way to the public forum. We didn't plan to stop there, but there was a lot of commotion on the lot, so we took a detour to investigate. As we got closer, we saw about 40 of Vanessa's friends sitting in next to a bulldozer. My mom walked up to the construction worker and told him he had no right to park his vehicle there. Oh, yes, he does, said Wilfrido, popping up in a golf cart that looked like a Hummer. He wore sunglasses that covered his entire face and the loudest, brightest outfit I had ever seen. It looked like a bag of Skittles had melted and someone had made a suit out of it. This is still property of La Cocina de la Isla, my mom said, so remove your bulldozer. Last I checked, this property belongs to the city, not your family. First thing tomorrow, I'll start building, and then the restaurant will be on borrowed time. Like an asteroid on a collision course with the Earth. My dad squeezed my mom's shoulder. He whispered something into her ear and then turned to face Wilfrido. My dad was about 6'2", and while he was probably the least violent guy ever, he could look pretty imposing. His big hands and huge shoulders and bushy beard made him look like he lived in the mountains with bears. He bent over Wilfrido's golf cart and said something to him that sent the cart zooming toward the bulldozer. Within a few seconds, the bulldozer revved up and backed out of the lot. We all admired my dad like he was Thor or something. He smiled big and took my mom's hand. What did you tell him, Dad? I asked. I gave him advice, he said and winked. Come on, let's get to City Hall. We marched toward City Hall in huge numbers. It felt like we were an army. Actually, we were more like a rising tide during a hurricane, picking up speed and more waves. Our family, neighbors, and friends as we hurled to shore. When we got there, my mom hurried into the chamber where she'd make her final plea. What are we going to do now? Carmen asked. I don't know, I said. Let the council vote, I guess. Carmen found her dad and I walked to my mom, who greeted people from the neighborhood as they found seats. The 7 city council board members called to order and the room quieted down. It was all very formal and organized. There was a table that curved out to face residents and 2 podiums positioned to face the board members. Each board member had a microphone and a nameplate. The guy in the middle, who I learned was the chairman of the committee and whose name was really hard to pronounce, Porfirio Mondaya, wore glasses at the edge of his nose and read from a paper. I had never seen him before, and I wondered how he had become chairman of a committee like this. The other 6 members flanked him on either side, and I heard each of their names as a lady at the far corner of the table called roll into the microphone. You had to really look because it seemed like she didn't move her mouth. Her face was expressionless, like she had done this a million times before. Mr. Porfirio Mondaya, the lady said, and it sounded like she totally butchered his name. Here, said Mr. Mondaya. Miss Roberta Mancini. Here, said the lady to the right of Miss Mondaya. Mr. Mondaya, she had to lift herself to the mic from her seat. She seemed younger than the rest of the board members. Mr. Gustavo Perez, here. Mr. Perez sported the most epic mustache I had ever seen. I couldn't tell where his nose ended and where his lips began. Mr. Eric Anderson, here. Miss Samaya Cratanetti, the lady announcing roll call was trying to pronounce Crastanetti, here. Mr. Ernesto Bustamante, here, thank you. Mr. Tomas Garcia. Commissioner Garcia leaned into the mic. I suddenly felt uneasy. I didn't know where we stood with the commissioner. Next, the chairman read from an agenda for today's proceedings. He read the legal details of the proposal. Land developer Wilfrido Pipo of Pipo Place submitted an additional amendment concerning the property on 426 East Main Street and the adjacent half-acre of city-owned property. My mind wandered while Chairman Mondaya's voice droned on. It was strange hearing how a place that held real memories and had real people working and eating inside of it for so many years was nothing but an address and a property line to the board members. If there was no personal connection to the place, how could we ever expect to win? Chairman Mondaya asked whoever was going to speak to stand up to be sworn in. My mom nudged me and whispered, "Stand up with me." My heart raced. Why did my mom want me to stand? There was no way I was going to speak at the podium. Before I could object, my mom pulled me up and we both swore before the council that we were going to speak the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. At that point, I didn't even know if God could help me. A few others stood to be sworn in, like Annabelle, as well as Dulce Dominguez, Mr. Michaels, both of Eddie Strap's parents, Chuchi, Enrique, Miss Patterson, and a few others who I didn't see because I was so nervous. And it didn't help that the room was so cold. It was easily 10 degrees colder than Abuela's apartment. Chairman Mondaya explained that the board would hear from the 2 proposed candidates first, and then from the members of the community who'd been sworn in. Because city council members were elected by the citizens of the county, members would take these opinions into consideration before voting. I learned from Vanessa that the council members must represent the interest of their constituents. I think that just means that if people felt that council members weren't representing them, they could vote them out in the next election. So maybe it did matter what we said in this room today. My mom looked over her notes and then up at the clock a few times. Mom? See, she replied. You don't expect me to say anything, right? Shh, they're starting. Chairman Mondaya looked around the room. Is Mr. Pipo here? Wilfrido had still not arrived, and I wondered if he was going to show up at all. Maybe he was so confident he'd win, he didn't feel like he needed to bother. But then the main doors flew open. It was Wilfrido. I have arrived, he said. Is it my turn yet? Wilfrido walked down the aisle, shaking everyone's hands while his assistant, Claudia, handed out postcards featuring People Place. Wilfrido took his seat opposite my mom and straightened his insanely bright jacket. Slowly, he removed his enormous sunglasses. Now that both finalists are here, Mr. Mondaya began. Let us listen to their opening statements for the development of city-owned land for public or private use. We would like to call Wilfrido Pipo to address the room. Wilfrido took the podium and cleared his throat about 20 times, then smiled. His sunglasses stuck to his mountain of gelled hair, and his collar was popped so high it shot up across his cheeks and almost covered his ears. He rolled up his jacket sleeves and began. It was hard to read the room. Some nodded at what Wilfrido said, like Eddie Strap's parents. And surprisingly, Miss Minerva, too. Others, like Chuchi and Estelle, shuffled uncomfortably in their seats. So Wilfrido concluded, People Place has many ways to make the community better and bring in money. So when you make a decision, make it for People Place. People clapped, including Commissioner Garcia and Mr. Bustamante, but I don't know why. It seemed like Wilfrido was trying to play it cool, like he was trying not to come off as desperate. But he came across as lazy instead. I sank into my seat and crossed my arms, partially because I was freezing in the chamber and partially because I was upset that Commissioner Garcia, of all people, had clapped for such a ridiculous argument. Wilfrido strutted back to his seat. My mom was next. She took measured steps up to the podium. She shuffled her notes, and the sound of rustling paper echoed throughout the chamber. My heart beat fast. I could hardly hear anything but the thump, thump, thump inside my ears, while my mom cleared her throat and made her final case for La Cocina. Chapter 25, My Sugary Fate. Before today, it was safe to say that my mom was not comfortable in the spotlight. It was really hard for her to be in front of people. She was always more comfortable in the kitchen, inventing new twists to Abuela's classic recipes. In that space, she floated swiftly like a bird between the gas stoves and ovens and walk-in refrigerators, totally confident. The dining room was a different story. My mom always relied on Abuela's charm, but she didn't have that option anymore. She was in charge fully now, and I think that flipped a switch in her. Her voice boomed through the speakers and filled the chamber. After an early successful restaurant venture called La Ventanita, she began, Veronica and Arturo Zamora, the first, moved here and built a new restaurant on Main Street. For 19 years, this restaurant has grown with the people of Canal Grove. La Cocina de la Isla has hosted weddings, bar mitzvahs, quinceañeras, first communions, and holiday parties. It is both a place where couples go to have a nice night out and a place where you can bring your entire family for a good meal. With the expansion into the lot, we plan to add dining space so we can feed more of you, and we will also increase our space for events. We hope to hold community concerts on a new custom-built stage. People Place will offer entertainment, not just concerts, Wilfrido blurted out. A movie theater, a gym, a spa, a rooftop cocktail lounge. Chuchi stood up and hushed him so my mom could continue. La Cocina de la Isla belongs to the neighborhood. By building into the lot, we will be a destination for even more people. There's an opportunity to continue to serve the community we love and attract tourists who want to experience Miami beyond South Beach. If this week's closure is any indication, we are still as relevant as ever. People want new, people want exclusive, Wilfrido interrupted again. People want a VIP experience, not dusty decor and uninspired recipes. Quiet, Enrique yelled out. Our business has turned a profit for years, my mom said. We are financially viable and we have returned some of those profits to you in a number of ways. This is a matter of community, comunidad. I would like every person in this room to think about what kind of neighborhood they want to live in. Because Wilfrido is right, his vision for Canal Grove is very different, and it would only be the beginning. Thank you. There was applause, but I noticed not one of the council members clapped like they had for People Place. My mom took her seat, and I squeezed her hand as the members called for a break. This People guy, such a sleaze. Will their efforts be enough to shut him down? Wait to find out tomorrow. Have a great day.